In the tranquil village of Novena lived a young man named Jack. Known for his kindness and quiet demeanor, Jack lived alone in a small hut at the edge of the village. His only family was his elderly grandmother, who resided in the neighboring village of Mori. Every market day he would journey to see her, bringing her small gifts and helping with chores. Their bond was strong, and these visits were the highlights of Jack's week. One fateful market day, after spending a joyous day with his grandmother, she loaded him with a generous amount of dried meat and other foodstuffs for his journey home. The bag was heavy, and by the time Jack reached his hut, he was exhausted and parched. To his dismay, he found that the water in his pots was infested with ants. Desperate for a drink, he decided to brave the dark and go to the stream for fresh water. The night was eerily silent as Jack made his way to the stream. As he bent down to fill his container, he felt a soft touch on his shoulder. Startled, he turned around to see a beautiful woman with an ethereal glow standing before him. She introduced herself as Rose, a mystical water spirit. Her presence was both enchanting and unsettling. Rose explained that she had been watching over Jack and had chosen him for a special purpose. She spoke of an ancient curse placed upon the village of Novena, a curse that could only be lifted through a unique and challenging sacrifice. The ancient curse on the village of Novena was a dark legacy passed down through generations. It was said that long ago the villagers had offended a powerful water spirit, leading her to place a curse upon the land. This curse brought misfortune, drought, and disease, causing endless suffering. The only way to lift the curse was through a selfless sacrifice that would demonstrate the villagers' repentance and willingness to embrace the supernatural forces they once scorned. The chosen one would bear a miraculous child destined to bring prosperity and harmony back to Novena, thus breaking the cycle of misfortune that had plagued the village for centuries. Jack was to be the bearer of this curse's resolution. She revealed that he would carry a child, a miraculous and mystical being, destined to bring great change to the village. Jack was overwhelmed with fear and disbelief. He pleaded with Rose to choose someone else, but her decision was final. She assured him that she would protect him and the child, but he must keep their encounter and the truth of his condition a secret. With a gentle touch, she blessed him, and in an instant, she was gone. As Jack walked back to his hut, he felt a strange sensation in his belly. Over the next few days, his belly began to swell and he felt movements inside. Terror and confusion gripped him as he realized the gravity of his situation. He isolated himself, trying to come to terms with his fate. The villagers began to notice his absence and peculiar behavior. Rumors spread like wildfire, and soon everyone was whispering about Jack. The turning point came when a palm wine tapper saw Jack sneaking out to gather food. The tapper spread the news, and soon curious villagers were flocking to Jack's hut to see the pregnant man. Children pointed and whispered, and adults cast suspicious glances. Jack felt the weight of their judgment and shame. He prayed to the gods to take his life, unable to bear the humiliation. The village elders, alarmed by the growing unrest, summoned Jack to explain himself. Bound by his promise to Rose, he remained silent. The elders, desperate for answers, gave him 5 days to reveal the truth or face banishment. That night, Jack returned to the stream, crying out to Rose for help. She appeared and reassured him, promising that she would protect him and the child. 5 days later, Jack stood before the village elders once more. As the villagers gathered, waiting for an explanation, Rose appeared. Her presence commanded awe and fear. She declared that Jack's condition was a divine blessing, a necessary sacrifice to lift the ancient curse. She warned the villagers to treat him with respect and kindness, threatening dire consequences if they disobeyed. The villagers, now fearful of the mystical being, complied. Jack was allowed to return to his hut, and their attitude towards him changed. Despite the external changes, Jack's heart was heavy with fear and uncertainty. He felt the child growing inside him, each movement a reminder of his unique burden. They brought him food and gifts, and his grandmother came to care for him. The day of the birth arrived. Jack's contractions began at night, and he was overcome with pain and fear. His grandmother stayed by his side, offering words of comfort and support. The labor was long and excruciating. Jack felt as though his body was being torn apart. Each wave of pain brought tears to his eyes, and he cried out to the gods, to Rose, to anyone who would listen. Finally, after hours of agony, Jack felt the final push. With a scream that echoed through the village, he brought his child into the world. His grandmother, with trembling hands, caught the baby and held her up. The child had skin that glowed like the sun, a beautiful symbol of the mystical union that had created her. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Jack looked at his daughter and felt a surge of love and relief. The village of Novena celebrated the birth of Isha, recognizing her as a gift from the gods. They named her after the mighty Iroko tree, symbolizing strength and resilience. Jack's pain and suffering had not been in vain. His sacrifice had lifted the ancient curse, and Isha's birth marked a new beginning for the village. As Jack held his daughter in his arms, he felt a deep connection to her, a bond forged through pain, sacrifice, and love. His journey had been arduous, filled with fear and uncertainty, but in the end, it had brought about a miracle. The villagers, once skeptical and fearful, now looked upon Jack with respect and admiration. They had witnessed the power of love and sacrifice, and their village was forever changed by the extraordinary events that had unfolded. Isha was not an ordinary child. She was strong and fearless, often fighting with other children and even adults. As she grew, she spent her time with the village warriors, leaving Jack lonely after his grandmother's passing. He started visiting Rose at the river, pleading to see her people. She often took him to different parts of the river, avoiding his request to meet her family. When Isha turned 18, a war threatened Novena. The village of Mori aimed to destroy them. Furious, Isha gathered the warriors and led them into battle. She fought fiercely and led her village to victory. Upon returning, the villagers celebrated her as a hero, but Isha couldn't find her father. Jack had gone to the river the previous night, pleading to meet Rose's sisters. This time she agreed, and Jack met them. Enamored, they decided to marry him and live with him in their underwater world, leaving Rose furious but powerless. Isha, frustrated by her father's absence, went to the river demanding answers. Rose appeared, informing her that Jack now belonged to their world. A fierce battle ensued between Isha and Rose's sisters, lasting 3 days and nights. Isha emerged victorious and rescued her father, but he was left deaf and dumb. Isha and Jack returned to the village, where the villagers cared for him. Despite his condition, Jack was happy to be reunited with his daughter. The village continued to celebrate their warrior Isha, who had not only defended her people, but also brought her father back home.